Oh, it's about time. Is it not about time? UFC 270 Fight Week is upon us. Welcome to episode 007 of AnikDotes presented by Draftkings. I'm Jon Anik, and man, if you can't tell, cannot wait to get to Orange County for UFC 270 Ngannou versus Gane. There are a few things in pro sports bigger than a heavyweight title fight. I have covered some in boxing. I called one in boxing in 2010. Obviously, some UFC heavyweight titles in my more recent past, but there's nothing in professional sports for me like a heavyweight championship fight, boxing or the UFC. That is our reality this weekend. Orange County, California backdrop, sold out Honda Center, 30-foot octagon. Give me all of it. I just can't wait to be in the building. Of course, the last time the UFC's heavyweight title, the undisputed variety, was on the line, it was Stipe and Francis, and it was March of 2021 without fans inside the little 25-footer there at the Apex. So big fight field this weekend. Coming up today on Dotes, main event mathematics, we will highlight odds historically for the undefeated interim heavyweight champ Ciryl Gane, who, of course, has cashed in every bettable spot thus far in his professional MMA career. Your UFC 270 related questions will highlight our Q&Anik segment, of course. Twitter poll results on the main event between Ngannou and Gane. Fan base certainly being heard from there, about 2,000 votes. And I will not spoil those off the top of the show. And where will my action be in the NFL? The divisional playoffs, of course, beckoning this weekend. Super Wildcard Weekend is going on as we speak, so we won't dive into too many of those results. But we are excited to go with UFC 270 to that end. Main event mathematics is where we begin. And what a fascinating story behind this main event. If you don't know, Fernand Lopez sits at the heart of it. Former head coach of Francis Ngannou. Ngannou spent his formative years in MMA under the guidance of Fernand Lopez, who now is the chief corner and head coach of one Ciryl Gane. Two totally different athletes, but certainly a very interesting component to this fight. And the consensus is right now that these are the two best heavyweights in the world as we begin 2022. Ciryl Gane has been favored in all of his UFC fights. He will be favored at close on Saturday. Of that fact, I can assure you. He's 7-0 in the octagon. He was only 3-0 as a pro when he made his UFC debut in 2019. So if you are looking for advantages for Ngannou, other than the obvious physical gifts and power, UFC experience, strength of schedule, certainly a strong lean to Francis Ngannou. But I'm putting the show together today, and it's Ciryl Gane minus 135 on Draftkings Sportsbook as the favorite, and Francis Ngannou coming back at plus 115. I go check the betting line right before we go on the air, and it is now Ciryl Gane minus 150 and Ngannou plus 130. So the price seemingly getting steeper by the minute. How does it compare to past prices on Ciryl Gane? It doesn't really compare, at least recently, right? Minus 350 against Derek Lewis. That was August of last year. 2 months prior to that, Gane minus 175 against Alexander Volkov. You go back to February 2021, he was minus 250 against Biggie Boy Jairzinho Rozenstruik. A little bit further back, this was December of 2020. You may recall he missed almost a year, or I think actually a full calendar year due to COVID-19 and other weird circumstances. But he was bet up from minus 270 to minus 455 or so against Junior Dos Santos, the former champ. Also took heavy action, did Ciryl Gane against Tanner Boser. At one point could be had minus 280 before closing up around minus 700. So a lot of people, fighters I talk to, coaches, full disclosure, they see value on Ciryl Gane. Seems like some of that value has already gone away in the last hour or so. But given his style, given the matchup, given some of the familiarity, given the obvious tools that Ciryl Gane has put on display in the octagon, I can understand why people like him and why he is going to be very hard to beat here on Saturday night. I will tell you on the other side that Francis Ngannou is, among other things, a very motivated man and the scariest power puncher that I have ever seen live in calling UFC fights for 10 years. Like, I want to know where the stretcher is when this man competes, so crazy interesting heavyweight championship fight this weekend. I think it'll draw two-way action right up until fight time. We'll have more on our DraftKings betting preview, of course, coming up this week. Probably get that on Friday. We'll be taping it at the NFL Network on Tuesday. But I'd expect two-way action. If you're looking for propositions, nothing on the knockout or submission front yet. Over 2.5 rounds, priced out at minus 105. Under 2.5 rounds, minus 125 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. One other prop I want to throw your way, and this is very interesting, live on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. Who will be the heavyweight champion at the end of 2022? So Francis Ngannou, as we mentioned, is the underdog in the fight this weekend, but yet he is favored when it comes to who will be the champion at year's end, albeit slightly. Heavyweight champ, end of 22. Again, Ngannou plus 150, Ciryl Gane plus 165. John Jones plus 450. Stipe Miocic 12-1. Derek Lewis 16-1. Tommy Aspinall 28-1. Tai Tuivasa 40-1. How about that? On down it goes from there. But Gane plus 165 to end 2022 as the UFC heavyweight champion. That would seem to make a lot of sense to me. If you like him this weekend at minus 140, minus 150 or so, plus 165 for him to end the year as the champ. And there's no guarantees, even if he beats Ngannou, that he competes again before the end of the year. Obviously, the UFC is expectant and hopes that he will. But stranger things have happened. Gane plus 165 right now to end the year as the UFC heavyweight champion. All right, so it is time for UFC 270, the heavyweight title unification fight between Ciryl Gane and the knockout artist of all knockout artists, Francis Ngannou. Don't discount Ciryl Gane's power, though. Really, for both of these guys, it could only take one punch to win, and the same goes for you right now at Draftkings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. New customers can bet just $1 and win $100 in free bets if either fighter lands a single punch. Now, if you'd rather bet this weekend's football playoff games instead, not a problem at all. DraftKings also has a special offer for you there. New customers can get 56-1 odds on any playoff team. You just bet $5 on one team, and you will get $280 in free bets if your team wins. How do you not like that? So much going on in the sports world right now. You might as well get in on the action. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use promo code Jon Anik, one word, JONANIK. Throw down just $1 on the UFC 270 main event and win $100 in free bets if Gane or Ngannou land a single punch. That is code Jon Anik this Saturday at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. Must be 21 or older, new customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. My gambling problem's a solution as far as I'm concerned. You know, I mean, that's maybe a vice in some respects, but I put a lot of my good energy into it, and it's one of my recreational pastimes, and it has brought a lot of great joy to my life. So very excited to have a lot of NFL action for myself over the last several games. This season went quickly. All right, time now for Q&Anik at Jon_Anik, the hashtag anecdotes for future consideration. Producer Cody Merrow will be off camera today. He's sort of soaking in the Patriots' loss, as we all are, so we're not going to put him on camera today. Cody, good evening to you. What do we have this week, my man?
John, not a problem, just a habit.
Yes, it's a habit. It's a habit, right? It's definitely habitual at this point, dating to 1996 for me. When you were 3 years old, I placed my first $10 three-leg Major League Baseball parlay. All right, go ahead.
Well, John, Joe from Bayonne wants to know, do you think this is the fight we find out if Ngannou improved or not?
You know, I guess I like the line of questioning. I think it depends how you quantify improvement. I mean, certainly spending that time with Eric Nixick and putting in the time since going back to Cameroon after winning the belt, you got to think that that's yet more developmental time. I like the fact that he didn't win the belt until his 13th UFC appearance. Again, we talk about the strength of schedule. But I don't know if people are looking for him to get extended to see that improvement, if they're looking for him to win a decision for the first time, if they're looking at for him to beat Ciryl Gane on points over 25 minutes. I mean, he walks into you and you could get a concussion, right? So I just don't think that's ever going to be his fate nor his reality. I have seen improvement. Perhaps a longer fight, even over 2.5 rounds, would appease you, Joe from Bayonne, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But I think it just depends how you quantify improvement. I've certainly seen some, albeit short sample size.
John, Liam Stein, 23, wants to know, what's next for Gane if he wins or loses? Opponents, trajectory? Does he follow the money?
Well, I mean, the world would be his oyster. I mean, certainly the Francis Ngannou contract looms large in all of this, but I think Ngannou, depending on how this fight goes, could lay claim to an immediate rematch. Maybe those guys have a series. Stipe is obviously waiting in the wings. John Jones is there. Tom Aspinall is 28-1 to end the year as the UFC heavyweight champion, but he could factor prominently in this equation. So I think the best thing about Ciryl Gane, he's a developing fighter that might just be the best in the world already. And in theory, that's going to mean an active champion, right? I mean, 10-0 as a pro, 11-0 as a pro, right? So 10-0, I think, right now for Ciryl Gane. So I think having an active UFC heavyweight champion that maybe gets 2 title defenses in potentially before the end of 2022 would really elevate his star power. You know, the best thing that you can do to increase your star power as a professional fighter is fight big fights and fight them often. So hopefully that's the recent history and recent trajectory for Ciryl Gane. Who's next?
John, bonus question here. Do you know what they say the best ability is?
Availability, I believe, is the best ability. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. One
the next
for one
question
on the pop quiz. Go ahead.
From 5 Kevin BOS. Does it make more sense to take Francis by KO than his money line?
All right, so Francis Ngannou has never won a fight by decision, and he has never been finished as a mixed martial arts pro. So does it make sense to wait for Francis Ngannou by knockout, which would maybe be plus 180 or plus 170 or so? Yeah, why not? I think if he gets to plus 140, that would be enough for me to pull the trigger if I was on the Ngannou side. But yeah, I mean, do I expect him to win on points if he wins? I do not.
John, Jason EG33. Gotta ask the obvious question. What happens to Francis after this fight, win or lose?
Well, if he wins, I think he will renegotiate with the UFC and come to terms, because that is the ultimate prize, I think, for him right now, the undisputed UFC heavyweight championship. And I think that's the springboard, right? I think that's the cornerstone, the most important one for the Francis Ngannou brand. But I'm not one of those boxing naysayers. I certainly wouldn't favor him to beat Tyson Fury, right? But I do think that for him to pursue big boxing fights would make a lot of fiscal sense as well. If he loses this fight, then I think there are going to be a lot of unanswered questions, right? Because then I think there are going to be a lot of people who are Francis Ngannou suitors. But hey, man, I've enjoyed calling his fights tremendously. I mean, there's nothing quite like calling a Francis Ngannou fight. People talk about a Conor McGregor pay-per-view and what that's like. And I have said in the past, for me, even packing my suitcase feels different when it's a Conor McGregor pay-per-view. There's just nothing like Francis Ngannou in there at the start of a mixed martial arts contest. So I'm hopeful, win or lose, that his long-term future is with the UFC. All right, who's next?
John, Discern Mr. Frog says, I don't fully understand Ngannou's UFC contract, but regarding his unhappiness with the UFC, do you think there's any chance that he throws the fight to be done for good?
Throws the fight. Could you imagine, right? I mean, there are people who still think that mixed martial arts or the UFC is fixed in some capacity. Even when I talk at times about my television scripts, people sometimes think that that means that the action is scripted, which couldn't be further from the truth. So his perceived unhappiness with the UFC, I don't know the inner workings of that, nor do I know the inner workings of his UFC contract, because I'm certainly not paid to talk about it. Some people think I am. Has really nothing to do with my job. You might hear me say that somebody's breaking in a new contract, but very rarely will you see me go down a lane in which I perseverate on the fact that it's the final fight on a guy's contract. And obviously, when you are a champion, there are champions clauses and things that don't make the contract as final as it may seem. But he's not going to throw the fight. I mean, he wants this one in the worst way. I compare it in some respect to Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. There's definitely an emotional component to this. Not that Ngannou and Gane were ever friends on the level that Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns were, but these emotional type fights where there is familiarity and history, you want those in the worst way. And I think Francis Ngannou would fight this man for free. Honestly, I think this is legitimate heat, and I'm excited to see them maybe not bury the hatchet after the fight on Saturday. Is that it, or we got one more?
John, we have one more question from Austin Collette. If Moreno defends his title successfully, does Figueiredo move up to 135?
Good question. So Figueiredo's mindset is very strong. I feel like he is one of the more intellectual, intelligent fighters on the roster. He's well read. I feel like if Deiveson Figueiredo spoke English, and you can say shame on him for not sort of learning the native tongue, and now that he is training exclusively in Arizona for this fight, maybe he's picked up some English. But when his quotes are subtitled, his Brazilian Portuguese, I mean, he is so thoughtful with everything that comes out of his mouth. And he posted a picture on social media, which was picked up by ESPN's MMA account. And here was the quote: "When you want things to be different in your life, step out of your comfort zone and go after it. Suffer, pay the price, and you will succeed in life." Obviously, the last fight for him against Brandon Moreno did not go well. And every time you talk about a Deiveson Figueiredo fight, you have to start with the weight cut if the fight is at flyweight. He has missed weight in the past, even when he has He's made it at times. It feels like he's staring death in the face. So it seems like he has made wholesale changes. And I think a lot of those are nutrition based, right? Certainly you can make a lot of the coaching changes he has made. And we're going to make a lot of those on the broadcast, you can be sure. But if you look at the physical right now, it looks like he has really gotten ahead of it. So I think he can stay at flyweight. But if he does lose this fight, I wouldn't be surprised to see him, not want to torture himself forever if there aren't immediate championship aspirations. He would be not 0-3 against Brandon Moreno, but he would be winless in 3 fights, the draw, and then the 2 losses in theory for Figueiredo. I just think you're moving up and fighting the Piotr Jans of the world. The murderer's row at bantamweight, I think might be prohibitive for Deiveson Figueiredo when it comes to moving up to bantamweight, because it's not as though he's a win away from a title shot up there. Best of luck cracking the top 10. So it's an interesting question, but I think he's a fascinating fighter. I think Deiveson Figueiredo is one of the top 15 pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and I know a lot of people are excited to see what he can do as a plus 155 or so underdog this weekend. All right, Twitter poll results for AnikDotes in advance of UFC 270. Who wins the heavyweight title fight? Had about 2,000 votes. 56.6% of you like the underdog Francis Ngannou, 43.4% going with the favorite Ciryl Gane. Money line, of course, going the other way right now. All right, time now for Rip Up Your Tickets / Anik's action. Kind of combined the two this week. I had a really good week overall. I know this segment is more fun when I'm ripping up a lot of tickets. I ended up going back 3 times to bet on the Philadelphia Eagles against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So all of that action was at +9. They lost the game by 16. So I took a bath on the Philadelphia Eagles. I have not been great in college basketball. But I do want to point out some things in terms of my betting habits, and I really hope my wife is not watching today's episode. She doesn't watch AnikDotes, so I don't even know why I brought that to the surface, but I am a volume bettor. I bet a lot. I don't bet a lot per game, maybe $55 to pay 50, sometimes less than that, but I bet a lot of games, and sometimes it gets a little out of control. I don't watch most of the games that I bet on, except the NFL, because I go to bed at like 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. So Monday through Saturday of this week, I placed 72 bets, right? So it's an average of like 12 a day. I mean, that's a lot. I went 42, 29, and 1, so that's 58%. Pretty good, right? Definitely hit a profit. 13 and 6 on Wednesday night, but that lack of discipline is pretty crazy, right? Like, that's alarming. Long term, I'm telling you, as somebody who's been doing this for 25 years, you're not going to win playing 19 games on a Wednesday night. Even if your information or your research or the cappers you're paying for picks or your hunches, which I'm okay with, are good. 19 bets in a night is just insane. Now, this is a UFC pay-per-view week, so I might go 48 hours without placing a single bet or even going into the sportsbook, because obviously work is work and business is business. And as I mentioned, I'm not watching the game. So, but obviously during a non-fight week, which the last week was, I certainly have time to plunge. All right, as I look ahead at my action this week, a couple of my tickets that are already down. So futures market, I always, as a New England Patriots fan, have a big ticket on like who I think is their biggest rival in the AFC that year. So I have a $450 ticket on the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl at 12-1. I placed that during the preseason at Circa Sportsbook in Las Vegas. On Draftkings Sportsbook, at the start of the playoffs, I bet on the Green Bay Packers at +160 to win the NFC. I think that has come down a little bit. I really do like the Green Bay Packers to come out of the NFC. NHL futures market is hot right now on the ice. So the Colorado Avalanche, they will not be my pick. They are favored to win the cup right now on Draftkings Sportsbook, +550. Now at +700, you've got the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Florida Panthers. I live down here in South Florida. I'm a diehard Boston Bruins fan, but I'm thinking I'm going to do like a partial season ticket package for the Florida Panthers next year. They're the best team in hockey right now. They're putting up like 7 or 9 goals a game. And right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, to win the Eastern Conference, Panthers are +400, +165 to win the Atlantic Division, and then, of course, +700 to win the Stanley Cup. So I sprinkled a little bit on the Florida Panthers on all 3 of those. St. Louis Blues, 25-1 to win the Stanley Cup. I think the Blueskis have some staying power, so a little bit of a small bet there. And then a $25 straight wager on the Carolina Hurricanes at 12-1 to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup. I think the Hurricanes might be around late into the Stanley Cup playoffs. playoffs as well. So those are my NHL futures. Very excited to see what the Buffalo Bills price will be against the Kansas City Chiefs. If indeed the Chiefs get past the Pittsburgh Steelers, I will be on Buffalo +3. I think they're going to go into Arrowhead and win that football game and represent the AFC in the championship game against either Tennessee or Cincinnati. A lot of big things happening. Can't wait to get to Anaheim. I got to go prep some fighters. You can follow DraftKings on social media at DraftKings on all channels. For the DraftKings Sportsbook, it is at DK Sportsbook on Twitter and on Instagram at DraftKings_Sportsbook. In terms of content from DraftKings coming up during UFC 270 Fight Week, odds boost in the DraftKings Sportsbook. That is later in the week. The Sportsbook essentially gives you a boost on a proposition that I come up with exclusively for them. Also, the comprehensive betting preview. We will tape that at the NFL Network this week. And, of course, we will see you all live on pay-per-view, 10 p.m. Eastern sharp this Saturday, January 22nd. It is UFC 270 from the Honda Center in Anaheim, California. With that, for our producer, Cody Merrow, I'm Jon Anik. Thank you for watching this episode of AnikDotes. We are back with you next month in advance of UFC 271. Won't be long now, folks. Until next time, appreciate you watching. Don't text and drive. Yo, later.